All right, everybody. Good afternoon. Welcome back. Hope you guys are doing okay, given what we are recovering from yesterday. But the show must go on, and now we move to the defensive side of the Pro Football Focus grades. This is going to be ugly. You guys can probably already tell looking at the screen, but yeah, this is not going to be any fun whatsoever. As you can see, the Seattle Seahawks had one player on defense graded above a 66. And they had, what, six players rated above a 60, and one of them barely played. Like, oh boy. This is how you get the result that you did yesterday. So once again, I want to remind everybody that this video is not meant to imply or indicate that I believe Pro Football Focus is always right, nor do I believe they're always wrong. So this is just looking at what they have and taking it into consideration going forward. So just looking at the overall defensive grades, I mean, Kobe Bryant is the one guy who stands out positively, and it's not that positive. It's literally 70.5. We're not talking about some 85 grade or anything like that. He was just decent. And in my estimation of things, I think that's probably pretty fair. I thought that Kobe Bryant did play pretty good. So I'm not saying that's an incorrect grade or anything like that, but when that's your only guy who's playing noticeably above water, above sea level, you get the results that you get. You got Byron Murphy in second place, and I really don't agree with that. I don't think Murphy played well at all. I thought he was getting blasted back constantly by the Bills front line. And I think that, honestly, the defensive line was a big problem yesterday. So right away, I'm looking at Leonard Williams with a slightly above average grade, one of the highest grades on the team, in tandem with Murphy being the second highest graded player. And I'm like, I don't think so. I don't think that reflects reality. So take that as you will, but I'm not really buying it. I think that Murphy and Williams were a big part of the problem yesterday. Fionn Hicks got a good grade, but he only played 7 snaps, and I think it was in garbage time, so it means nothing. Mafe got an okay grade, right? He got a pretty okay grade, even though he contributed very little as a pass rusher. And he missed a tackle, but they didn't dock his tackling grade for some seemingly arbitrary reason, because they docked Leonard Williams' tackling grade for his miss, even though he actually had more tackles and an actual run stop. Yeah, Pro Football Focus, I gotta be honest, I don't know what you're doing sometimes. I talk about you guys a lot because I think you guys are working hard, but I don't get you. Like, I don't know how to explain that one, but after that, after Leonard Williams, you're down into the guys who are like average. Dodson, Draymond, Jaron Reed, Reek Woolen, Kayvon Wallace. They were all kind of like, uh, just kind of going through the motions out there, but it wasn't atrocious, right? And then you dip down into the guys who were just bad, which is unfortunately Ernest Jones. Even though they thought he did a good job tackling, he did have like 15 total tackles in that game and didn't have any misses. Everything else was so substandard. They still didn't grade him well. Roy Robertson Harris, invisible, which was consistent with how I felt about that game. Witherspoon, bad, and he's missed 6 tackles now in his last 2 games combined, which is really uncharacteristic and really concerning. Julian Love, pretty garbage. Josh Joby, even with the interception, he's so weak in coverage otherwise that they can't really give him any credit for it. Derek Hall, awful. And I don't even know if this grade is really accounting for the nature of that penalty. Maybe they're docking him for the penalty, but are they docking him for the fact that the penalty probably cost us 4 points right before half? Right? They're docking him mostly because of his bad run defense. They really don't like his run defense, which, in terms of their objective stats, is a little bit confusing to me, but whatever. And then Jonathan Hankins brings up the rear big time with one of the worst games you'll ever see a defensive lineman play. So I kind of feel like the ire that should have been put on Murphy, Williams, and Reed, even Reed, by the way, was just ranked a little below average, probably should have gone from Hankins to those guys. It feels like Hankins just absorbed all the all the flack for the way the defensive line struggled in that game, and I don't know if I agree with it personally. I don't know if I'm really buying that to be the reflective of reality, but I mean, I don't think Hankins played particularly well, right? And I feel like it's something fundamentally wrong with this defense personally. I feel like that this defense, there are a lot of people on Seahawks Twitter talking about this. I'm not like breaking news here. I'm not like shattering the world with my revelations that I found from studying tape last night or anything like that, but they don't seem like they line up properly on defense. The most basic thing to stop the run, and they're not doing it. And previous games, I felt like the linebackers were a little more to blame. This game, I'm a little more hard on the defensive line, but whatever it is, I think it's something fundamental. And this is where Mike Macdonald earns his money, because Mike Macdonald needs to be able to look at all this and go, okay, this is not working to such a crucial degree that I have to do something a little bit different here. Or get the players on the right page here. Because I'm sure he wants to play like this, right? I'm sure he wants to play defense like this with the way he has his defensive linemen occupying gaps, the way he has them synced up with the linebackers. But if it's not working to this degree, do you have something else you can go to, or do you have some ability to fix what's going on? Because I've said it before, you don't need to have a great or even an average run defense in the modern NFL, but you can't be terrible. And in the game yesterday, they were terrible. And in a couple of games this year, they've been terrible. And that's a non-starter. That's McDonald even said this earlier today. They are not able to deploy the things they want to deploy defensively because they're not doing their job on the most basic of level. So how can he get to the next page? How can he get to the part where they're like, okay, we're getting the offense into bad situations. Let's take advantage of those bad situations. So that's the overall defense. Looking at the run defense stuff again, I know that there were a lot of tackles. Like Ernest Jones himself had, well, 4 tackles and 6 assisted tackles. So he was all over the place. But look at these stops. Like nobody's making consistent stops on this defense against the run, right? They're making a lot of tackles down the field. And again, this is where you do miss a little bit of Bobby Wagner. Now, I'm not saying we should have brought back Bobby Wagner. I'm not saying that would fix anything, especially at his age. But Wagner was a guy who would be picking up, 5 or 6 legitimately good run stops every single game. We don't have that guy right now. Every week, it seems like the guy that's getting run stops changes, and sometimes it's just nobody, right? So, yeah, you got 26 total tackles, 11 assisted tackles from the run defense, and only 12 of them constituted stops. And remember, stop is like the pass-fail marker for what would constitute a successful run defense play versus a failed one. And while we only had 2 missed tackles against the run, I do want to point out, if you go back to this page, he had 10 overall missed tackles, so I wouldn't say the tackling was necessarily better, right? Like I said, Witherspoon missed 3, Woolen missed 2, Dodson missed 2. By the way, was that Woolen's worst game of his career? It really might have been, now that I'm really thinking about it. I feel like it might be. So, anyway, that's your run defense. Again, it's just hopefully Ernest Jones the fourth, can become that guy. But right now, we don't really have that guy. That guy who's consistently making plays in or around the line of scrimmage, behind or near the line of scrimmage against the run. Every week, it's somebody different. And then you have a week like this week where it's kind of nobody. All right, let's look at pass rush stuff. Again, this is PFF we're talking about here. So I think the thing that really stands out would be nobody got graded well. I mean, look at this. This looks like puke. This looks like a row of puke. 62.7 is our highest graded pass rusher. Ernest Jones is the lowest graded pass rusher, by the way, with a 52.8. So that doesn't make me feel good because this was the best blitzing linebacker in the league last year. And it's just one game, but if he doesn't pick this up over the next few weeks, I'm going to really I'm just going to be confused. I'm going to be like, well, what does it mean? What does that mean? How does the best blitzing linebacker in football come to Seattle and stop blitzing effectively? We'll get to that if it happens, though. But if you're just talking about pressures, Leonard Williams, they gave him credit for 3. I'm going to be perfectly honest. When this gets to PFR later this week, I'm kind of expecting them to revise that to like a 1 or a 0. Because I don't think Leonard Williams had a good impact on that game. Jonathan Hankins had 2 pressures, and according to PFF, they were not worth it because of how bad he was against the run. Jaron Reed had 2 pressures. They still didn't think he played well as a pass rusher, for whatever that's worth. And then you had a couple of stragglers. You had Hall, Mafe, Murphy, and Jones each having 1. By the way, you probably have already noticed this, but 0 quarterback hits and 0 sacks. The 1 sack we had in this game, I think Josh Allen ran out of bounds or something. So we never actually got to him. Now, a sack is a sack. I'm not taking it away, but it's not the same as most other sacks that you see throughout an NFL game. And they gave us 11 pressures in this game, did PFF. What is PFR going to give us? Are they going to give us 3? And I feel like 3 would be a pretty reflective of reality number. I feel like that would be a fair number. So we're back in the hole, people. We're playing the way that we played last year, the year before. And the new coaching staff isn't making things better. And they're not making things worse, mostly because it's hard to make things worse than they were. Okay, coverage. Once again, I got to point out these colors, man. At least there's a little bit of green at the very top here with these 3 guys, but there's nothing stand out here. Look at this. 66.5, and then you got like 3 guys hanging around 65, 66, 67. That's the best you can do. And by the way, the guy they actually gave the decent coverage grade to, Dodson, they even admitted he gave up 5 catches for 42 yards. So maybe he played well, but the numbers aren't really reflecting that, right? It's all yak, I guess, but still, you're looking at this and you're still probably thinking to yourself, that's not really a good game. That's not really what I want from my inside linebacker. And Derek Hall, Kobe Bryant, Kayvon Wallace, they're the other guys who got okay coverage grades in this game. They never got targeted. And hey, good for Kobe Bryant for not getting targeted once in this game, but Wallace and Hall barely have any chances anyway. Doesn't mean anything. Ernest Jones had an okay coverage grade. I don't know how. He and Dodson combined gave up over 100 yards in this game. 5 for 4 for 59 yards on Jones's head. I don't know how that gets credit from the graders, I'm going to be perfectly honest, but I acknowledge the fact that Jones could be playing well and still giving up stuff because, you know, Josh Allen's too good, the Bills are too good, etc., etc. But Ernest Jones giving up 59 yards in coverage in his first game in Seattle is not going to make people feel like we got a significant upgrade. These 3 guys, whatever, they played 1 coverage snap each. Woolen gets hit with the below average grade, which is fair. He gave up 2 touchdowns. And the first one, whatever. That second one, that looks to me like a guy who doesn't really want to be out there at that point, right? That looks to me like a guy who just wants to get off the field and go eat an Uncrustable or something. So that's not going to look good on tape this week. And that one bothers me. Julian Love, he did all right according to PFF. 4 targets, 18 yards allowed. Witherspoon, another 50-yard plus game he gives up. 7 targets, 6 catches. It's a legitimate sophomore slump at this point. You would have expected him to get better. Instead, he's gotten worse. I still don't think he's a bad player overall this year, but he's having more bad moments than he had probably all of last season. Boye Mafe gets a really bad coverage grade. He allowed 1 catch for 12 yards. And Josh Jobe gets an interception and is still dead last because of the penalties and because he gave up 81 yards on his 4 other plays he got targeted on. So, still not good enough. And while Josh Jobe's been a nice story these last 2 weeks, he has done some things right. This should be a keen reminder that we need Trey Brown back. Special teams, not a ton to say here as usual, but Kayvon Wallace and Drake Thomas did extremely well with the graders. D. Williams does extremely well, which maybe justifies his roster spot, but you got to get him off the punt returns, man. It's getting untenably bad. And then Josh Ross, who was the new guy. McIntosh got a really poor special teams grade, so did A.J. Barner. Not noticing any big trends here. Like, I was kind of hoping that Reed would be somewhere on here, and we're not quite there yet. I mean, Jarek Reed, of course, but he needs time, I guess. And that's it for Pro Football Focus this week. Let me know what you think. See you guys later.